What's going on, guys? Welcome back to ETB Boxing, where we bring the story behind every punch and every fight. So Canelo Crawford is behind us. What's next now for these boxers? They're big names. Canelo's the biggest name in boxing. Crawford is now a big name, but Crawford had shared to many that maybe retirement after the Canelo fight was going to be his next step. But is that really going to be the step? So we're all wondering what's going to happen. Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, and Sergio Mora are all going to chime in on what they believe and what they think. And I think all of their perspectives could be possibilities for what's next for Crawford and what's next for Canelo. If you're interested in finding out what these boxers are going to do, I think these are the best conversations to figure out, what the next step is. Let's go ahead and react to our first video where Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri, and company are discussing what should Crawford do first, and then we'll talk about if we need to see a rematch between Canelo versus Crawford. Me personally, I don't think we need to. There's some people that think that they should do it because of the money. There's some people think that Canelo can win after with a rematch. I'll let you see the video and then we can discuss it afterwards. Let's check it out.
Chris Algieri joining us via Zoom, still shooting a movie, big time in us. He's always sending us pictures with famous. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it with Chris. But anyway, I get sidetracked. But 3 questions we need to tackle today. When it comes to Terence Crawford, does he fight again? What weight class? And who could it be? Let's tackle number 1. Paulie says he's retiring. He said this was it, but this is right where he's in those sweet spot money-making years. We are hearing he made about 10 million plus or minus taking on Canelo. Next one could be 40, 50, huge money. Could he possibly walk away?
I mean, for me as a fan, I'd like to see him walk away into the sunset off of this great victory. He's been very dominant in his career, set his place up on a perch very, very high in boxing history. He's in the GOAT conversation, and it's not one of these situations where, sometimes you put your favorite fighter in the GOAT situation, but it's like, is he really in the GOAT situation? He's extremely in the GOAT situation conversation, and I think everybody would agree. I don't think you'd get much pushback on that, It's just a matter of whether he is the GOAT or not, but he belongs in that conversation.
Would you walk away in his position right now?
I'd like to see him walk away.
Would you?
I don't know his. Here's the thing. I remember my manager one time told me something. He said, "There's no such thing as extra money." So it's like, because some people say, "Oh, he made all that money." It's like, he can walk away. Yeah, there's no such thing as extra money. So you can always use more, right? I mean, that's one way to look at it. But are you gonna wind up in a situation where you regret looking back? Also, there's the other side of it. There's the boxing doing what's good for boxing side of it, which Canelo was not doing for a while, and that is keeping the titles hostage and
pass the torch to the next guy.
And not only keeping the titles hostage, but defending them against middle tier opposition while freezing out the top contenders in the weight class.
One of the things that makes this difficult for Crawford to walk away, it's not like he was given opportunities for big paydays most of his career. $10 million is this against Canelo was his biggest payday, and you're talking about a guy that's undefeated. He accomplished a lot in his weight classes, and so I'm gonna find it really difficult for Crawford to walk away from a $20 million, $30 million fight, whether it's a rematch with Canelo or a fight against a 154 Ortiz. I don't see him walking away with that kind of money. I agree with Paulie. A part of me just says, dude, you did it. You did it all. You have nothing to prove. But then on the other side, 20, 30 million, it's a lot of money. And we're going to see what Crawford does. I have a feeling he's not going to walk away just yet.
That's not boxing. That's not sport. That's not good for the health of the business. And it's not good for the young talent to not be able to come up the way they need to. I've heard the conversations where all of a sudden Turki Al-Sheikh now is pushing the Benavidez fight on Crawford. Dude, why didn't you push the Benavidez fight on Canelo? Like, what's with that? If you're the guy, be the guy. Why is he walking on eggshells with Canelo? Like, he had Canelo. He was just so happy, like a bit of a groupie, I gotta say. Like, he had Canelo. He wasn't pushing a Benavidez fight on Canelo. But all of a sudden, Crawford wins the title. I'm gonna push the fight. I'm gonna push the Benavidez fight right away. I don't mind Crawford not fighting Benavidez because Crawford is so much smaller. It's like when Pernell Whitaker beat Julio Cesar Vasquez. He won the title at 154, but then he vacated and went back down. I think that's the right thing to do. I think you vacate the titles at 168. If you want to fight, you fight at lower weight classes or whatever, and you allow the weight class to breathe. And you're still that name, that huge name recognition. and you're still that guy who can, either pursue other championships and back in your lower weight classes, or you can, do a bit of a retirement tour, whatever. Same thing I was saying that Canelo should have done instead of holding the titles hostage. If you stay at 168 and you defend at 168 and you start defending against middle tier guys, you've just continued the Canelo game plan, which is just to freeze out.
I would say it's the Mayweather game plan. I think Mayweather started that. But back to the Benavidez and Canelo fight, White Turkey Al-Sheikh would maybe be open to that. I think a lot of people realize that David Benavidez was probably going to be the hardest fight for Canelo and probably wouldn't win. I think now that he saw how well Crawford did against Canelo, I think that's why he's pushing it. That's why he's thinking, man, maybe Crawford is that great, and it would actually be a decent match. I think that's why he's pushing it, in my opinion, because Crawford just did so well. I think it caught Turkey off guard.
Not the best contenders of the weight class, and this weight class is starting to come onto a new generation of top welter and super middleweights. We've got Lester Martinez. We've got Pacheco.
And Bailey looked improved
Pacheco,
as well.
And Bailey's still there. You've got guys at 160. Oh, you already put the old regime. You pushed them out to 175, like Benavidez and Morrell. Even Morrell, Bob Santos was here the other day, said maybe Morrell could come back down to 168 if the title's open. I'd like that to happen just for the sake of boxing. I get where one would think, Crawford could defend at 168 and do all this stuff. But if you're gonna do what Canelo was doing, then there's no difference. It's the same complaint. I think Crawford's place is at a very firm hold where he is. If he retires now, he's in a untouchable state. But I understand where there's no such thing as extra money. But just don't hold the titles hostage, dude. Don't do what Canelo was doing.
What I'm curious about, Chris, you talk about it all the time, where this is your money-making years. It's kind of the end of your career. But, he looks so good against Canelo. Is he going to leave potentially tens of millions of dollars on the table? And he can fight maybe 2 more times, help cement that legacy, and walk away with an extra $100 million in the bank. This is a time where you make your big money. What's your thought on him potentially walking away? And as Paulie said, what weight class he would be in, because he's not a 168-pounder.
Couple things.
No.
I agree with the champ. I would love to see him walk away and finish a career perfect at its height. Kind of the way that I wish Roy Jones had done after he had beaten John Ruiz. He jumped up to the heavyweight division, became heavyweight champion of the world. At that point, it's like, what else is there to do? And he chose to go back down to light heavyweight, fight the #1 contender and who's been there for a long time, Antonio Tarver, who's a super dangerous guy. And he ended up winning that fight too. He could have stopped there. It wasn't a great performance, but he could have stopped there, and he would have been minted as GOAT status. But he kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going. Part of me wishes that he did stop then, because then we're talking about GOAT status, which is where Crawford is right now. But that money's real, man. That's a lot of money. And saying that he made 10, maybe 20 million this fight against Canelo made 150.
Yeah.
So can you just leave that money on the table? I don't know many guys who would. I don't know many guys that have. And I obviously he's still got a lot left to him, but I don't see him.
150 million, man. I'm sure Crawford wants to make a little bit something like that. Imagine 2 more fights and he takes home $50 million, man. Wouldn't that be nice for Crawford if we can get that for him? That'd be nice.
Campaigning at 168. I think he gets rid of those titles for more than a couple reasons. One reason is he's just not that weight. And I believe that it was a calculated risk going up 2 weight classes and fighting Canelo, because he's a smaller guy. Canelo's 2 inches shorter than me. Canelo has a 4-inch discrepancy in reach. He's got slow feet. There was a lot of things that Canelo presented, even at 68, that Crawford saw where he was going to be better than him at it. He could take advantage of. And he did. We saw that all night long in all 12 rounds last Saturday. Also, his stablemate, Lester Martinez, also trained by Bomac, also from that team, is a 68-pounder. You want to fight your sparring partner and keep him from getting titles? Yeah, I mean, ultimately, do guys really care about that? I don't know. They have a team aspect, it seems like, at the Bomac's string of guys and the Terrence Crawford Nebraska team. But also, man, there's a wide open 160-pound division. How cool would it be if Crawford then goes down to 168 and starts collecting titles?
What do you think of
down there?
Janabek? He's got 2 belts. Crawford versus Janibek, that's a doable, winnable fight, right?
Super tough fight. Super
But
tough
when
fight.
Janibek's getting up there too, right? And he's I don't
Janibek is so
always,
inactive.
I don't think he's always
And-
as sharp as Crawford. You know, like Janibek is kind of inconsistent.
Alan Canuli,
When
by the way,
Janibek's-
is who we're talking about. Janibek Amal Canuli at 160 pounds. Yeah.
When Janibek is on, though, he's a nightmare. And
Is he better than Madrimov?
He's a big. I think so. I think he's got similar style in terms of.
Hey, you know, speaking of Madrimov, you know, how good is Madrimov? I mean, look how Crawford made Canelo look, you know, in that fight. Madrimov may be a lot better fighter than we thought, and Ortiz got him too. So Ortiz is formidable too. Yeah, I mean, there's so many fights out there for Crawford's next move. I mean, right now the world is his oyster. I'm not sure what we're gonna get, but let's jump over to Sergio Mora and Chris Mannix talking about, should we get a rematch? Let's talk about it. Let's hear it.
Do you want to see a rematch of this fight?
No, because it was a as a fighter, as a former champion, if the first time he handled Canelo so easily, the second time is going to be even easier. I don't want to see it because there was no exciting moments that give you a what if. Canelo never had any momentum built his way. He never dropped them.
That's a real good point that Sergio's making. There, throughout the fight, there wasn't any hope that Canelo maybe could pull this out because he never did anything.
He never cut him. He never had Crawford weary at any point. There was confidence in the eye of Crawford the entire time. There was long range pot shotting and there was close range catching and countering. So even though Crawford had the reach advantage, he had a lot of advantages, you know, foot speed and everything. He also outfought Canelo. So what is Canelo going to do the second time around? Just get more aggressive and run into more shots? I don't want to see this fight again. I don't think a lot of people want to see this fight again. I don't think Netflix will want to pay for this fight again. I don't think every single person, that record-breaking crowd, it was an incredible atmosphere. You won't have an incredible atmosphere the second time around if it's a
Yeah,
rematch.
you would. Yeah, you
Nope.
would. Come on.
You'll have to.
You know, to Sergio's point, a lot of the people that I'm been talking to when it comes to this fight, they're not like, it's almost like the air was taken out of them. They're not excited about even the idea of a rematch, or the subject doesn't even come up. Usually the conversations are, hey man, is there a rematch clause? You think they'll run it back? What do you think will win? Like, people just, even casuals, realize that Crawford, he schooled Canelo, man. He really did. I don't think people want to see this fight. I agree with Sergio Mora.
Be at a smaller arena because people already saw Canelo get dominated by the better fighter, and the better fighter will do it again, even easier and with more confidence.
Yeah, but you hold on. You keep saying this.
Hold up. Canelo, see, this is the thing about Canelo. He sometimes relies on the environment, the hostile crowd, to also help him win this fight. Not only with the judges, but with the opponent. Crawford even handled that. You know, you can't prepare for that magnitude, the roar of the crowd, the lights, everyone booing you. You can't prepare for that. Crawford was ready for that. Even his ring entrance, when he came in with that guitar case, it was, man, that's one of my all-time favorite entrances.
Desperado. Yeah, it's an homage to Desperado. Yeah.
Actually, it was Mariachi. That was part one. Desperado was part two. That right there, it was me against the world. That was his mentality. Me against all these Mexicans. Me against Canelo in Las Vegas. Me against Canelo and the judges that he probably has in his pocket. Me against everyone, and Bud shut everyone up. And you think?
Yeah, but hold on.
Canelo's going to be able to do it the second time around?
I don't know. I don't think it's an open and shut case as you do. Let me put it to you this way. After Canelo Golovkin won, which finished in a draw, which most people thought Golovkin won. Like there was widely viewed as a robbery in Las Vegas. That was one of the first times, not the first time, but one of the first times everybody said, well, Canelo is a Las Vegas house fighter. After Canelo Golovkin won, did you think Canelo was going to win the rematch?
Yes.
No, you didn't. You're a liar. You didn't think he was going to win the rematch. After Canelo Golovkin won, which in between came the Canelo positive drug test, you thought Canelo was going to win the rematch against Gennady Golovkin.
Look, you know, going back to, there wasn't any moments between Crawford and Canelo. There was moments between Triple G and Canelo. There was moments where Canelo did punch back. He did connect. I think it was a draw or a loss. I don't think there was any way you could see that Canelo won that first fight between Triple J and Canelo. But there were moments there. There were moments where like, ooh, man, Canelo hit him with there. Who's going to win who's really going to take over this fight? There were moments there. So I think that's what Sergio was referring earlier regarding why he doesn't want to see this match again. There was no moments against Crawford and Canelo. As far as for Canelo, there was no moments of hope for him.
I was there at the first fight and watching it live. I had Canelo winning. Then when I went back and my trainer was telling me, "You're crazy. Golovkin's jab was a key. It was a power jab." Then I watched it on tape and I was wrong. Golovkin won that first fight. All right. So then the second.
Yeah. And what? Hold on. The Canelo in the second fight made a big adjustment. Instead of letting Golovkin dictate the pace of the fight, he took the fight to Golovkin. He backed him up. All that talk that Golovkin and Abel Sanchez did during fight week saying, fight like a Mexican, fight like a Mexican. He did. He fought like a Mexican. Stepped to Golovkin. He stepped to the boogeyman at 160, and he won that fight fair and square. It's a different set of circumstances, but just this past weekend, Paddy Donovan, Lewis Crocker, both you and I were like, Donovan, easy. Donovan, knockout. Lewis Crocker goes out, fights a completely different fight they did the first time around, flusters Paddy Donovan, knocks him down 2 times, and wins the welterweight championship. My point is that Canelo is an incredibly smart fighter. Eddie Reynoso is an incredibly smart trainer. If they do a rematch, they're not going to have the same game plan. They've got 12 rounds of information now to study on Terence Crawford. Now, maybe that won't mean anything, Sergio. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe Crawford will also go back into the lab, find new ways to attack Canelo. Maybe Canelo's, this is just a fact of life. Canelo's too old and can't pull the trigger on some of these shots anymore. But I promise you, if they do this again, Canelo's going to have a new game plan against Terence Crawford. And I'm not ready to say that game plan won't be successful, especially when by the time this fight rolls around, Crawford would be 38 plus, almost at 39. And what are you doing? What is your problem?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waiting for you to stop talking because you sound as confident and as ignorant as you did just a few days ago when you were you were saying there's no way he wins this fight. He's moving up 14 pounds, coming up from lightweight. Crawford's gonna Canelo's gonna do this. Crawford can't do that. And you were dead wrong. And you're admitting that you were wrong right here.
I said I was wrong. Hold on. I said I was wrong. You start to snore into the microphone. It's my turn. You
a bag of tricks. In fact, 35 years old already. No. If he was maybe 25, then I would agree. But he has too much wear and tear. His feet have been heavy from the beginning of his career. How heavy they are now at 35?
Yeah, so for all the Canelo fans out there who think that maybe Canelo can go back and get with Eddie Reynoso and figure out some things, look at study film. There's times in life when regardless if you are a basketball player, if you're a lawyer, if you are whatever you are, sometimes you see someone that's just really good and much better than you at it, and instead of competing with them, you just accept, like, you know what, I'm gonna accept defeat and just stay in my own lane. That's what happened here with Canelo versus Crawford. I don't think there's anything that Canelo can do to actually win the fight against Crawford. I think the only way he could win is if, Crawford just didn't prepare the way he needs to because he got too comfortable. But that's not Crawford's DNA. I agree with Sergio Mora. No need to see this rematch. I don't know what Chris Mannix is thinking. I don't know what he sees. Maybe he's a big Canelo fan. I don't know. But I'm with Sergio Mora. I don't want to see the rematch. I think it's unnecessary. What do you think? Let me know. Drop me a comment if you'd like to see the rematch and who do you think would win. That's all I got, guys. Thanks for stopping to the channel. That's the punch. That's the story. And that's ATB Boxing, baby.